$700,000 car, right around 600 each. The first shop, there was days where I'd go in at 4:30 a.m. and not get home till midnight, 3,500 to 5,000. My name's Heath Hoogerhide. The business name is Hoogs Customs. The company honestly kind of started on accident. I was detailing cars on the side and then buying and selling vehicles to resell for a profit, and just realized all I was doing is cleaning them up and making them look better and making money on it. So I put a ad like everybody would on Facebook Marketplace back when you could do services. And I started, making more money on nights and weekends than a good full-time job out of college. When I was 21 or 22, took the leap of faith and just went for it. Started in the apartment garage, then moved to my parents' garage, which was 2 stalls, so I could get a little more work done. And then right after I got married, we moved into our first shop, and that was kind of the start of it. Now we're 6 years later.
When you say car detailing, did you start out washing?
Yeah, just the most basic detailing that you could do in your own, garage. But yeah, like I said, it was just buying trucks. I think I counted the other day, and I've had 25 or 26 vehicles, and I'm 28 years old. So I was flipping through trucks like no one's business, but then kind of looked back on it and was like, how am I buying these trucks for $4,000 and selling them for $7,000? All I was doing is making them look appealing to someone else and cleaning them up. So I thought, why not try and make money on the thing I'm actually doing, then keep buying trucks and flipping them. So yeah, that's kind of just where it started, and then it was all self-taught from there. I had a lot of good mentors along the way. Terry Heckman, who's a legend in the industry, introduced me to paint corrections, which simply put is removing scratches from clear coat with a polisher or sandpaper. And it was just from there, experience, and learn along the way.
What are some of the investments that you had to make to get started?
The beneficial part of the company is we have a very low overhead. So it's not necessarily like, let's say, a landscaping company where you got to buy a, let's say, $4,000 mower, a truck, a trailer, an edger, and all this type of stuff. I think the biggest investments were probably the extractor, which those aren't cheap. And then we have, 6 root base polishers. We have a 1-inch, a 3-inch, 2 5-inches, 2 6-inches, and then a rotary, so 7. And I think that was the biggest investment, minus people. We did for a while, we would buy, I think our first build was a Ram 1500, then we bought a Wrangler, then we bought another Wrangler, and then we had 2 Trackhawks kind of as, I'd say, almost as promotional pieces, where we would buy them, do our own thing to them, and then sell them. So we kind of got back into that realm. But they were my personal vehicles. I drove them all the time. But as far as starting the company, the polishers, the essential equipment to do the job better was probably the biggest investments.
Do you know how much that might have been?
The extractor was $2,400, and then each polisher, the little one's like $600, the 3 inches probably around $4 or $5, and then the other 4 were right around $600 each, I would say. But I didn't buy those all at once.
Right.
It was, I think I started with the 6-inch, and then we started doing higher end, the exotics, where a 1-inch buffer comes in huge help, along with a 3-inch, and kind of just built up to where the equipment we have now.
What do your day-to-day operations look like when you first started to now?
Oh, when I first started, it was just the hustle. Any new business owner, just getting as much clientele as possible and working as much as possible, not telling anyone no, even though, turned into 80 to 100-hour work weeks at the beginning with no days off, to now I have the luxury of taking weekends off and spending it with my family. But I would say day to day now is getting in here, writing receipts, checking in with customers that we have their cars for the day, and then obviously working on the vehicles. But then the end of the day is obviously touching back in with the customers and kind of letting them know what their vehicles' issues are, how things went. Because I think one of the biggest things in any business would be customer service. You can have a great product, but if you're not treating the customer right, then you're gonna go nowhere. So yeah, that's kind of a broad day-to-day thing. Sometimes we got to pick vehicles up, sometimes, you know, things like that. But I would say that's generally how the day goes.
And when you were transitioning, how did you know that you needed an employee?
I think it was the second shop is when I started hiring. I believe this is our fourth shop just due to size and location. But it was getting to the point where and back then it was okay because I didn't have a child, or, you know, it's just me and my wife, and she was super supportive. If I was working, it didn't matter what time I got home. The first shop, there was days where I'd go in at 4:30 a.m. and not get home till midnight. Some long days. When I realized I could teach somebody the trade essentially and cut down on my hours, but also be more efficient, that's when I started hiring, just because it made sense. But yeah, so now we have 2 employees. They both kind of have their specialties on what they do day to day.
Other than employees, what are some expenses that come along with it?
Minus taxes. Just materials. Making sure you have, you know, looking at the week ahead and saying, okay, this is what I need. And we use Great Lakes Chemicals to get most of our products, which is nice, along with, you know, everyday AutoZone runs or running over to Ace to grab something. But I would say materials is probably the only large expense week to week. Obviously we rent here from the new restaurant going in. Eventually I would like to purchase land and build exactly the shop I want, but land isn't cheap these days. Yeah, I would say those 2 are probably the biggest overhead expenses, but it kind of stinks too because every week's material is different than the week previous. So you really just have to look at the schedule and figure out what you're gonna need.
And do you know how many cars you work on in total?
I'd say 700, 800 maybe. Really just depends on what's getting done. You know, like full paint corrections take time, so we can't do 5 or 6 in a day. But yeah, I would say upwards of 700, 800 a year, along with, we work on boats too. So we did a 50-footer, 34-footer, 44-footer. I feel like we did one more this past year, like yachts, and those are multiple day projects. Those we're just getting them done in one day type deal. So yeah, it just depends on how everything plays out.
What is the most expensive car that you've seen in?
Oof. It was last week. Lamborghini Countach LP400S. It was a 1979. It's not the most expensive in terms of when the car hit the market, but it's the most expensive in terms of if you wanted to go buy one now, because they're right around 900 to 1.1 depending on the spec. There's only, of that specific model with the low stance wide body, there was only 70 ever made. So it's very limited to be able to buy that car. But before that, it was probably the Aventador SV that's coming in tomorrow. That's a $700,000 car. And then the Ferrari 812 GTS, which is the first front engine convertible Ferrari with the V12. I think that it's weird because they're all market value. Brand new, that car's, you could order it if you're on the allocation list for like $550. But they're on the market like 700, 800. But yeah, those 3 are definitely the tops.
Is everything here the same thing or is it different?
No, that one, the Mustang, got a 2-stage paint correction and we applied a 3-year ceramic coating yesterday. The Trans Am we worked on last week. We did a full paint correction and ceramic coating. Now it's back for engine bay detail and a quick spiff on the interior. The Highlander back here is interior only. This is going to be a basic exterior, so we're just polishing the paint to make it shine again, along with an interior. The C8 we ceramic coated a year ago, so it's kind of in just for a quick summer spiff. Along with we're tinting it tomorrow, and then the McLaren is a quick spiff. We're just polishing the paint. We're making it look as good as humanly possible, going the extra mile on everything, shining up the calipers, the barrels of the rims, the whole 9 yards. And then the Ferrari that just rolled up is gonna be a full polish. Just get that black paint to shine again, essentially. Not going crazy on it, but giving it the shine. Yeah, so it's, everything's such a variable. Like what's going on. We can ceramic coat rims, we can ceramic coat windows with both are completely different coatings than from the paint. But yeah, days like We could have a 1-year ceramic, a full paint correction. We could have a basic exterior, which is just a polish and paint sealant, along with 3 interiors or 2 undercoatings, and then which makes it difficult because we want as much out of the shop as humanly possible. Or we use the curtains in the back to shut stuff off. But yeah, that's why I send them a very in-depth schedule every Sunday so they can see what's going on, moving parts and such.
Are you spending any money on advertising? How do you do advertising?
Facebook and Instagram. It's free. And with any service business, if you do good work for one person, when their buddy says, hey, do you need your car? I need my car detailed. Who would you recommend? It's just gonna be a snowball. For example, I have a customer named Kaz. I worked on him for probably about 3 years to get him to get one of his cars in the shop. And he's got a massive collection. And they're all Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, you name it, he has it. After we got one, it was snowball effect. We went through all of his cars. Every time he gets a new car, we get to work on it. But it wasn't easy getting him in the door. But once we got him in the door, then 6 other people in his circle started using it too. Yeah, it works out well with free advertising. It just takes my time to be able to use Instagram and Facebook, but I feel like that's different business to business too. There's some businesses that it would probably benefit using ads and stuff like that on, say, Google or anything like radio ads, anything of that nature.
Can you talk about the services that you offer and maybe the prices?
Yeah, prices are that's kind of a loaded question just because interiors, we generally, if you don't stop by and get a quote, we give you a price range. It's gonna be anywhere from here to here. Generally that's 125 to about 200. If I gotta call you because it's gonna be more than 200, then it's really, really, really bad. The ceramic coating price is kind of the same thing because we have to do all the paint correction, everything like that before we apply the coatings. But generally anywhere from $550 to $2,400. And then wraps, again, it really depends on the vehicle, color, everything of that nature, how long it's gonna take. But I would say anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000. Bed liners, typically $550 to $650, depending on bed length and what needs to be taken out before we start the process. Undercoatings are generally $400, unless there's gonna be a lot of sanding beforehand. Tint, vehicle dependent. I mean, sedans are different than SUVs and vice versa, but front windows to match the rear are right around $125, and then from there, we do windshields, every window on the vehicle, but it's vehicle size dependent. And then painting calipers, that's really the only paint work we do anymore, just because of the shop we're in now. Generally $300 to $450, depending on if you want logos laid and all that kind of stuff. We outsource paint work and exhaust work and custom builds like lift kits, rims, tires. So we have wholesale accounts that we can tap into for all of that kind of stuff. But generally we've seen that it's almost easier just to send them to the company, especially during our busy time where the phones don't stop ringing. But yeah, we've started with, when I started, it was interior exterior detailing, that's it. But we've made connections in the industry, and now we're able to send, if somebody calls me for a full paint job, I send them over to TJ's Customs Garage right down the road. All lift kits, rims, tires, exhausts, pretty much any aftermarket part we send to Ada, which is Gas Pedal Customs. And then we do all the tint, wrap, detailing work in-house. Bed liners we outsource. All we do is prep them and then we send them to the booth. And then undercoatings we do in-house. So quite a few services, but that was kind of my goal, is do enough that you can offer everything in one shop, but not too much that you're losing quality on other work, if that makes sense.
What service do you think you do the most?
Detailing work. Paint correction, ceramic coatings is our bread and butter, along with interiors. They're the everyday thing that, you get it done, you're gonna need it done again in the future type deal. I would say those are by far the top 2. And then third would probably be tint. I have a third party come in that tints every Wednesday, so we load his schedule up on Wednesdays and he gets them all done. We also offer PPF, but that's another third-party service. The nice thing is they all come here. So we have curtains that close the shop off if they need to work on one side and we work on the other type deal.
What are your plans on growing or expanding, or what does that look like?
I've always tried to just grow organically, just because I feel like if you try and push it too hard, at least in this type of business, things can go south. So I really don't know what that looks like. Obviously, hiring more employees is the end goal because that means we're so busy that we can't get the workload done. My end goal would be to own a shop and then have it be large enough to bring the third-party services into my space, just so that literally everything's getting done in one. Like, you could call us and get anything done on your vehicle. So I think that would be the end goal. Like I said, price of land it's not cheap right now, and that's not even building the shop. So that's in the future. I don't know how far in, it could be next year, it could be in 5 years, but that's kind of the end goal.
What did you study in college?
That's a good question. That's a loaded question too. I would say if you have a specialty, if you want to do something very specific, engineer, doctor, lawyer, anything that you're gonna need a college degree for, obviously you should do it. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in business with an emphasis in marketing. Would I do it again? I don't know. It's tough. It's one of those degrees that you really do anything with it. I wasn't even using my degree when I worked at Meyer Corporate, but it does, in some senses, get your foot in the door to other places. It's a great place to network. But I also think if you network well, I don't think you really need a degree if it's not a specialty. As far as if you want to do a trade, don't go to college. If you go to trade school, that's one thing because you actually have to learn the trade before you do it. But yeah, that's kind of like a situational question.
Do you see a lot of variance in like seasons?
Oh yeah, winters are when we want to do boats because they're in a marina, they're not being used, and they allow us to book out for a longer period of time. And we see a lot more interiors in the winter, obviously with salt being up in Michigan. And then spring, it's usually April-ish when it's going until roughly, depending on weather, September to October-ish. But we usually stay fairly busy until about the end of November. But the past 3 to 4 years, there hasn't been a day where we didn't have something to do. But yeah, it's definitely, you can play the seasons, and I keep track of those fluxes. Like 2 Augusts ago, it was way crazier than last August, and I can look at those numbers and kind of see why was this, and dive back into the schedule. But yeah, spring is usually our busiest, and then all summer it's just there's something to be done, you know what I mean?
Is there any other tools, equipment, chemicals that you would recommend?
Not really. I mean, any polish is good. They're all the same thing. Yeah. They're just different expenses, and usually, like Rupace, they make all their own stuff. Mm-hmm. But we like McGuire's polish, and we like McGuire's compound just because of how they react to most of the paint that we work on. But it's nice having auto parts stores right down the road that we can go kind of play with compounds and stuff like that. So tools, get some towels and a buffer in, you should be good type deal, you know what I mean? So the rabbit hole of polishing, the pad and polish combo is different for every vehicle. If you're cutting, you're gonna use a medium cut. You're gonna probably use either a microfiber wool is what we like, or a pad such as this where it's more dense foam. But if you were just doing a polish, you're gonna be super soft foam polish. That's more so let's just bring some shine back, but not necessarily correct everything. So yeah, I mean, it really depends on what the end goal is on a car. When you're picking, I call it a recipe. You gotta find out what's gonna work for that vehicle. Along with obviously RPMs that you're pushing at. You can run, you can go crazy or you can just polish. So yeah, it's really vehicle dependent and what the end goal is.
Do you have 3 tips of advice for any other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would say I actually had a mobile detailing company. I've been talking to him quite a bit because he asked me when he should take that leap. If you're 19 and you have no responsibilities, you don't have a family, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a car payment, I would say just do it. You have nothing to lose. It's a little bit harder if you have kids and a wife and a house payment and all that kind of stuff. I basically kept my full-time job as long as humanly possible until I was done. I was burnt out. And I think it was right around 5 to 6 months where it was getting up at 4:30, working out, going in the garage until I had to go to my 8 to 5. And then when I got home from my 8 to 5, I ate dinner and I went back in the garage. So I would say grind it out as long as possible with keeping the steady income to help finance the business, I guess, depending on what you're doing. Second piece of advice would be utilize social media. It's huge right now. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those are free. The ads on them you can run. So I guess we do pay for ads every once in a while if we have a crazy vehicle in here and we want more people to see it. But we're talking like $20, $30. We're not talking $200, $300. I would say utilize those as much as possible because almost every single person has either Facebook or Instagram and you can link them. So whenever you post to Instagram, it's posted to Facebook. I didn't know that for the longest time, so I'd have to post to both, which was terrible, but now I have them linked. Third would be find a mentor. Find somebody that's done it and is great at whatever you're doing, trade-wise or service-wise or whatever you're doing, and learn from them. You're never gonna stop learning. It's just how it goes. I would say I'm better today than I was last week just because I've learned more. Experience is everything. Do it as much as humanly possible. I mean, from a paint correction, wet sanding, ceramic coating applications, all those type of things, I was doing after hours for a long time before I said, yeah, let me do it to your vehicle, you know what I mean? So perfect your craft or your service or whatever you're doing and have great customer service and you're gonna be okay.